Our next witness is Mr. Doug Quinn. Mr. Quinn is the Executive Director of the American Policyholder Association, which is a nonprofit that tracks and reports fraud committed by insurers against their policyholders. Mr. Quinn, it's good to have you. The floor is yours.
I'm Douglas Quinn, Executive Director of the American Policyholder Association. We're a nonprofit watchdog group that monitors and reports on insurer fraud against property owners. The APA formed after Superstorm Sandy. My home was flooded, I was at my weakest moment, and instead of helping me, my insurer hired U.S. Forensics, an engineering firm who created a report that an independent engineer determined was false. My insurer denied coverage for the worst damage to my home. Despite being fully insured, it took me 7 years to rebuild and get back home. At 61 years old, this is one of the most traumatizing betrayals of my life. I was not alone. In the Sandy engineering fraud scandal, CBS News, 60 Minutes, and PBS Frontline all reported on policyholders wrongfully denied nearly $500 million in claims. When asked if he participated in fraud, an insurer's claims executive pled the Fifth Amendment. Thousands of families paid for insurance as a safety net only to be betrayed on their claims. For many, it was the end of the American dream as they lost their homes. This wasn't the first time insurers defrauded policyholders, and it won't be the last. The APA routinely receives reports of insurer fraud. Often, the insurer will hire an engineering firm to inspect the property and write a report, which will then be manipulated to reach a predetermined outcome. Insurers are shielded by plausible deniability that the engineers commit the fraud, but the insurers are the ones driving it. They continue to use U.S. forensics and other fraudsters. Insurers play the same shell game with adjusters. Many adjusters inspecting homes aren't employed by the insurer, but rather by third-party administrators. They technically a separate company. These TPAs are simply alter egos of the insurers and commit the same fraud the engineers do. Trained adjusters write an honest estimate only to be instructed to alter and delete facts by a reviewer. This isn't just a few bad apples, it's industry-wide and has been for decades. It happened in Katrina, it happened in Sandy, it happened in Irma, and it's happening right now. I worked in the insurance industry for 30 years. There are thousands of dedicated, honest professionals who take pride in helping families recover after a loss. Many of those professionals would be appalled to learn what happens to policyholders during claims. Those aware of the fraud are afraid to speak out, and for good reason. In this regard, insurers are like gangsters. Those who speak out get blacklisted, harassed, and sued. After Katrina, 2 employees blew the whistle on State Farm's plan to shift claims to the National Flood Insurance Program using systemic engineering fraud. State Farm sued the 2 sisters, but after years of litigation, State Farm agreed to pay the federal government $100 million to settle the case. Recently, Jordan Lee, a young insurance adjuster, reported that a TPA he worked for altered his reports. The insurer that hired the TPA, Heritage Insurance, is now suing Jordan for defamation, even though he did not accuse Heritage of changing the reports, but rather the TPA they employed. However, Florida regulators recently hit Heritage with a historic $1 million fine for multiple violations in handling of insurance claims. Jordan's a kid. He doesn't have any money. Most people believe that they're suing Jordan not for money, but rather to silence he and other whistleblowers. Many assert that the insurance industry's playbook is break the law and ruin the whistleblower. I routinely speak to insurance insiders who are terrified of retaliation. If it wasn't for whistleblowers like Jordan Lee, journalists like the Washington Post's Brianna Sachs, and honest plaintiffs' attorneys like Stephen Bush, we would never even hear about the fraud. In fact, all too often, we don't. Insurers are committing fraud and ruining the lives of the very people who pay them for protection. Premiums are skyrocketing, but Americans receive less in claims. The American consumer is being squeezed. The fraud is about more than money. Americans buy insurance for protection in their weakest moments, when their homes are wind damaged or burned, and they're scrambling to find housing for their family and schools for their children. The last thing survivors need is a war with their insurance company. The stress destroys marriages and spoils childhoods. The fraud also affects the federal government. When their insurer denies valid claims, homeowners are forced to rely on FEMA and federal aid. The American taxpayer is now subsidizing the fraud. This would not be possible if insurer fraudsters were held accountable for their actions, but states have proven incapable of doing so. The APA has given gift-wrapped fraud cases to state authorities only to have them languish without results. It's time for federal enforcement. It's time for federal prosecutions. It's time for these criminal organizations to be brought to justice. To this panel, I say, the American public needs you. Thank you.